This woman believed she could slip by unnoticed, quietly covering up the traces of her crime. But she was wrong. A simple surveillance camera would expose her darkest intentions and eventually a chilling crime. There are several instances where killers were captured on camera getting rid of evidence of their crime, such as this teenager who preyed on an unsuspecting lone female going about her usual day. Or this man who attempted to pin the blame on someone else completely unaware that cameras had captured him at the scene of the crime. But first, let's go back to that fateful night, the night Teresa Coster met her killer. When a 56-year-old grandmother drove away from her Blooming Prairie, Minnesota home one cold March day in 2018, she left behind many things. She wanted to leave behind her nickname of Losing Streak Lois and become someone different, and along her way south, she'd try to become a new version of herself, one she called Stormy Liberty. But what she really was leaving behind was the murdered body of her husband and more questions than anyone could easily answer. And she would find another identity, a new her, by killing again. Join us as we look into the strange case of Lois Reiss, who took a chance on mayhem that led investigators on a multi-state manhunt.
Could I speak with a detective possibly? My name's Greg Oswald, or a deputy sheriff. We have right up to the point of missing person here. My business partner, and there seems to be something seriously wrong.
Okay, how so?
Well, I haven't been able to talk to him for 16 days, and neither of any of the employees. His home is 100 feet from where we raise these waxworms in Blooming, just south of Blooming. We're getting very strange signals from his wife, who has now, there are this past week receipts and checks missing out of a bag that our accountant is supposed to pick up Monday. He's supposed to be at a fishing tournament. He's been sick, and no one is supposed to call him. So we've been getting very strange. Well, this is my family's old farm that I'm still in business there. Dave and Lois have a farm. There is a history of this woman having $300,000 mistakes in her life recently, and gambling issues, some mental issues. I'm very leery about doing this, but now I've got 4 employees there. I'm in Montana. I live here, but I got 4 really upset employees. It's a Dave's missing.
Over the next couple of hours, members of the Dodge County Sheriff's Office and the Blooming Prairie Police Department arrived at the home of David and Lois Reiss. It was a cold day with temperatures hovering around freezing and a light snow covering the ground. 2 of David's employees from the Waxworm Farm met the officers there, both worried about their boss and friend. Initially, the officers found the home locked, with a couple of lights on within, but no one would come to the door or answer phone calls to the numbers they had. Officers and the 2 friends of David Reiss began walking around the home, looking into the windows to see if they could spot anyone. At the back of the house, they could see a light coming from a bathroom window. The window was at least partially open. Blooming Prairie Police Officer Daniel Peach was boosted up to the window by Corporal Jacob Peterson. Looking through the window, Peach saw an obviously deceased individual lying on its back, partially covered by a blanket. Both of the corpse's feet were sticking out from under that blanket. The employees helped the officers find a key to the house that had been hidden under the hood of an LP gas tank, and they made entry. Coming through the garage, officers saw that David's truck was still there. However, his wife Lois's 2005 white Cadillac Escalade was gone. As they entered the house, nothing looked out of place. The kitchen was clean and there were no signs of any struggle. A television in the living room was on, but the cable box had been turned off. The laundry room showed recent signs of use, and the door to the master bedroom was open. When they entered the master bedroom, they could see that a door to the master bath had been closed and a rolled-up towel had been pushed against the void at the bottom of the door to create something of a seal. They opened that door and found 54-year-old David Reiss's body in the chilly bathroom, dead for at least a couple of days. Crime scene investigators from the sheriff's office arrived on the scene shortly afterwards. It was Friday, March the 23rd. Up until now, no one besides his wife had seen the man since the couple had been at their grandchild's basketball game on March the 11th. That night, according to the family members, the two had an argument, one that probably continued once they were home. Where was Lois now? Had she fled the scene, or had she become a victim of the crime as well, and was now in real danger? A BOLO, or Be on the Lookout notice, was sent out immediately for the woman and her vehicle. Examining the body, investigators found that David had been shot 3 times at relatively close range. As the body was rolled over, they found a single .22 caliber long rifle shell casing impressed into the skin of his back. The autopsy would later show that the first shot had struck him in the right side of his chest, striking his heart and piercing the left ventricle and atrium, then going through to the lower lobe of his right lung. A small 40-grain projectile was recovered from within the body. The second round had entered through the right side of his back, piercing his heart and lung as well. The bullet could not be recovered from the wound. The third gunshot wound was to his left arm, just below the elbow, with an exit wound an inch and a half below that. It was assumed that the third wound was obtained as he attempted to defend himself from the shots. A bullet would later be recovered from the wall of the walk-in closet in the bathroom. A shell casing matching the one found under David's body was found in the kitchen of the home, and a partially emptied magazine and loose bullets were found in the master bedroom of the home, along with an unlocked and empty fire safe. So, who were these people? David was a veteran of the United States Navy who had met his wife while stationed in California. The couple were married in 1982 and returned to Rochester, Minnesota, in the area where they had both grown up. David loved fishing and hunting and boating, and eventually opened a bait shop that he ran for a number of years while Lois provided daycare and babysitting services from their home. In 2010, David would close the store and go into the business of raising waxworms to be sold to bait shops around the region. By most accounts, the couple were moderately successful in their businesses, and they were the parents of 3 children and had a growing number of grandchildren. Lois would, however, develop a bit of a gambling problem over the years, frequenting nearby casinos and regularly purchasing lottery tickets. She quickly found herself over her head, and it created strain on the couple and their finances. At one point, a social services worker had to file an affidavit against Lois for allegedly stealing money from her own mentally disabled sister's guardianship account and spending at least part of it at a local casino. While no charges were filed, Lois was required to pay back just over $100,000. There is no record of her actually paying back the money that could be found. Authorities in the surrounding area and nearby casinos began nicknaming her Losing Streak Lois, and she became known to them for reports of her stealing money and items to cover her gambling habits. At home, it became standard practice for David to never bring receipts or business checks to the house, instead leaving them securely at the waxworm farm in the office there, in the adjacent barn to their property. And therein lies a big clue as to what happened. A handwritten timeline provided by the employee said that he had last seen Lois on Thursday, March the 22nd, when she had come down to help them put together a large order. She had left before lunch that day, after saying that while David was still sick, he was planning on participating in a fishing tournament that weekend in Spring Valley, Illinois. The next day, the bag, where all of the company's checks from customers was kept, was missing, and David did not show up at the sign-in for the tournament. This prompted the welfare check that led to the discovery of his body. But Lois was already gone, and David, according to autopsy estimates, had been dead for some time. Another look at the timeline says the employee had not seen David or spoken to him since March the 8th. And the last report of anyone seeing David was at the basketball game on March the 11th when the two of them had their argument. The very next day, Lois came down to the waxworm farm and told them that David was sick and would be staying at home and to please not call him. Investigators would come to believe that David had been shot and killed by Lois on the night of March the 11th. Had she been living in the house with the doorway to the bathroom sealed against the smell of a dead body, allowing the cold wind from outside through the open window to slow the process down? It seems that that's pretty much what happened, but it seems that during that time, Lois was living it up a bit. St. Patrick's Day had always been a big event for her, and she celebrated with gusto, always reminding them that they had a little bit of the Irish in them. And that year, for St. Patrick's Day, she was going to do it up right. On the day before, March the 16th, Friday, she headed out to get her hair done at a Fantastic Sam's salon in preparation for a night of hitting the casino. The woman who worked on her hair, Elizabeth Sorensen, would detail her interaction with Lois that day.
Can you tell me a little bit about the interaction? You told me that she was a walk-in, a first-time walk-in, and you did her hair. Just tell me about that.
Yep, she came in and she was going to be going out for St. Patrick's Day. She said that she was going to be going to Diamond Joe Casino, so she wanted her hair to look like Peggy Bundy and have it nice and big, and so we gave her a blowout and kind of curled the ends out and made it nice and big and put some back combing in it, and then she was going to continue her look at home and add some sparkles along her part line where we had parted her hair, and she was going to come back in and show me her hair, but she never ended up coming back in. So
okay, do you remember what time that was at all?
It was in the afternoon. Not positive on the time, but I want to say she left around 3-ish.
So it was sometime after lunch, you'd have to say.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember, did she say anything else about going to Diamond Joe's that night or anything?
She had just mentioned that she was going to be going and meeting up with some friends, and that she really liked to unwind and gamble.
Okay.
And she was going to be all dressed up for St. Patty's Day.
Okay.
That night, she would make her appearance at the Diamond Joe Worth Casino in Northwood, Iowa, some 40 miles from their home. This was her go-to spot, her casino of choice at that moment. She came in and spent most of her time in the casino's restaurant. There, a waitress would remember serving her and would later speak to the investigators.
Sure. And then one of my other coworkers said, she messaged me, and at my break, I work at a school, and on my break at work, she said, is this that lady that used her husband's credit card the other day? And I was like, no, it can't be. And so and she's like, do you remember their last name? And I said, I only remember first names. It was David and Lois. And I was like, I don't remember, because David's name was on the card, and Lois was somebody else and the casino identified her as Lois, and when I looked at her ID, it was Lois. And so I opened up the news story, and it took me forever, and when I opened it up, it was her name, and so I said, I don't know, I called my friend, and I said, I don't know, do I call, is it, I don't know, you know what I mean, I don't know what any of the lists. I had seen news stories leading up to, something about Blooming, is it related to stuff in Blooming Prairie? Yeah, I had seen that the other day, but I'm not real familiar with the area, so I didn't read it.
Okay,
and
let me back up a little bit.
The night that she was in, I had questioned her. I said, table 51, she's paying with a credit card.
So you remember it was table 51?
Yep.
All right.
I'm like, she's paying with a credit card, and it's in a name David. And some names, do go both ways, but I said, I've never had somebody do that when they're alone, and it not be you know what I mean? Me not know them.
Right. She's a female and it's a male's name on the credit card.
My mom's taking my dad's credit card places and paid for things. So I was like, what should I do? And so I asked my supervisor, and we called security, and I called security over, and they said, well, do you feel comfortable IDing her? Or do you want us to ID her? And I said, no, she's been really nice to me this whole meal. I don't have any problem IDing her. I just wanted to know the, kind of correct protocol. And so she did provide me with ID. And
okay, so you asked her for ID?
Yep, and she provided me with ID with her name.
And can you just describe her for me, what you recall
She's
her?
Blonde. She's not like, she's not skinny, but she wasn't, like, super heavyweight.
So like medium build?
Right, yeah, and she's blonde, like a dirty blonde, I would say. I don't think it's as blonde as the pictures are, honestly.
Okay.
I think it's more of a, I don't know, a dirty blonde, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. All right.
And she wasn't standing, but, you know, when I saw her, I didn't stand next to her, but she was taller than me, but she wasn't tall. I'm only 5'2", so most people are taller than me.
And so do you remember about when this was?
Yeah, it was between 6 and 7:30 that night, I think. I know that she was in there. I mean, I can tell you, like, she sat and she had, like, an appetizer, a salad. I mean, she was completely relaxed, had a full meal, and I remember her sitting in there. She was in there for, like, an hour and a half. I know I apologized to her because it was taking so long. And she was like, no, it's fine. I'm not in any hurry, like... I mean, she's a regular. I've seen her in, I don't know if I've waited on her as much as some of the others. She typically sits at the bar in the wood fire. Okay. And so I've seen her in there, so I mean, she was calm and she wasn't rude or anything, so I guess no red flag, so it completely surprised me by this news.
So 6 to 7:30, and this was on Thursday night?
Thursday evening, yep.
So Thursday the 22nd,
yeah,
100% sure.
Yep, because I only worked Thursday and Friday this last week.
Yep, and so she came in by herself?
Yep.
By herself the whole time, left by herself, never anybody else with her?
I never saw anyone else with her.
Okay.
The whole time, she never said anything about being there with anyone. She didn't, like, you know, like sometimes people will come in and, like, I have another guy that comes in and his wife gambles and he just eats and talks to people. That's all he does. So she never said anything about being with anyone. I've never, in the previous times that I've seen her here, I've never seen her with anyone ever.
Okay. And you've seen her here other times before this?
She sat at the bar. She said she's always by herself. I've never seen her with anyone. That's why, I think that's what the major thing with, like, the red flag with the credit card. Because I'd never seen her with anyone else. Like, maybe if I had seen her with her husband before, it wouldn't have, like, bothered me. I'd be like, oh, he's off doing something. Sure. But I had never seen her with anyone.
Lois would come back on March the 22nd and spend the night at an adjoining Country Inn and Suites property right next door to the casino. CCTV cameras would capture her checking in. She seems to be having quite a good time and even called an old friend, Louise Echelon, to meet her at the casino the next day. Lois, at this point, had also gone to the bank that held her husband's business account and cashed all of the business checks and moved some money into her account, roughly $11,000. She was ready to roll.
Hello?
Hi, is this Louise?
Yes, it is. Is this Mike Anderson?
It is. It is.
All right.
Sorry I missed you. I just wanted to call you back, and I'm sure you're kind of aware what I'm calling about.
Yes.
And so I guess I was in the Albert Lea area yesterday, but today I'm not right at the moment. So if it's okay with you, if we can just talk on the phone for a little bit.
That would be okay.
Okay. Can you just start out, Louise, you're associated or acquainted with Lois?
I've known her since she was 10 years old.
Okay.
She called me on Friday about 11:30, quarter to 12, somewhere in there, and she asked me to meet her at Diamond Joe's. Okay. She said that David was gone and that she wanted to spend some time at the casino. She was an avid gambler, and I live close, so I go maybe once a month just for relaxation. She's a high roller. I'm not. She came at about 2 o'clock, I think it was, and we sat at that one machine, the money machine, where it flies around. It's just a 50-cent machine. So anyway, we stayed there for a while, and then we visited a little bit, and not one iota of a problem. You know what I'm saying? I think I was the most shocked of anybody when it was Sunday night when I heard the news, the 10 o'clock news.
And so when you meet with her, though, everything seems normal. She doesn't give any indication that there's any problems or anything like that.
Well, she did say that David was gone,
Okay.
and it wasn't like for the weekend, but he's a businessman, and he used to do trucking out of that fish place, so that was not out of the, it wasn't anything alarming either, nothing. It was just,
So she said he was gone, meaning gone like traveling somewhere, like...
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And that's not uncommon for him to do that.
No, because they did trucking, all that, it's that fish, it's a fish, worms, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you guys spent some time at the casino that afternoon, and then...
Well, it was from, I actually saw her from 2 o'clock until like 3:30. I thought when we were going to walk out together, I thought we could walk together, and she said, no, I'm parked over by the hotel. So in my mind, I just figured, that's Lois. She wants to gamble some more and get her money back.
Okay. She likes to gamble.
Obviously she does, and I know David wasn't fond of that. They work hard for their money.
Sure.
And they are successful.
Lois, however, was not sticking around. She was heading out of the area, heading south for warmer climes and whatever the road was going to bring her. She would stop at a come-and-go convenience store and gas station on her way out. She grabbed a sandwich, topped off the fuel tank of her Escalade, and asked the cashier for directions. Hand-drawn maps later found in her car would show that she had picked a route to Fort Myers Beach, Florida, a place she and David had been invited to visit by some acquaintances back home, but never had. Apparently, it seemed like there was no better time than now to make that journey. Unfortunately, alone. The couple that had invited them, Therese and Rod Coster, were originally from Rochester, Minnesota, and owned a number of properties in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, that they rented out to vacationers, many from their old hometown. Their daughter, Bree Riva, who also ran the family's automobile lot in Rochester, received a call from a woman calling herself Stormy Liberty, asking for an address in Fort Myers for the Costers. Since this wasn't an unusual occurrence, she provided it. Lois would turn up at the Costers' home the next day. By this time, however, Lois's disappearance and murder of David had made national news. She was, at that time, still just a person of interest and was only wanted for the potential theft of business checks and money. Therese spotted her and recognized her.
She has platinum, almost white hair in a ponytail.
Tess says the woman was looking around at the rental properties. She asked if she needed any help.
Our eyes met, and I just, oh my goodness, my heart skipped a beat. It was Lois.
Tess knew Lois was missing after her husband was shot and killed at their Blooming Prairie home in March.
She shook her head and she said, wrong house, wrong house.
Lois took off in her SUV.
We were so scared.
Tess ran back inside and told her husband to call 911.
The sheriff's department on Fort Myers Beach was so worried about us. They came over and said, you guys have to be careful. Shocked. Had no idea. Both Lois and Dave are the sweetest people, or were. I don't know what happened.
Lois fled the scene, but decided to double down on Fort Myers Beach. She dug in and followed through on a plan that she probably had made during her long drive south. That $11,000 in cash she had worked out was probably nearing the end, as her credit cards were going to alert authorities where she was if she used them. Her plan required her to make a new friend, one that looked as much like Lois as possible, and she found one only a few blocks away from her encounter with Therese Coster. Pamela Hutchinson was visiting Fort Myers Beach for a few months after the death of her husband. She was in town to visit with a friend or two and, more importantly, to scatter her beloved husband's ashes on Sanibel Island. It was a tough time for her, and along came Lois, who had recently lost a husband as well. The two struck up a fast friendship, hanging out and going out for meals and drinks. Lois and Pamela were spotted on CCTV outside the Smoking Oyster Brewery on the old San Carlos Boulevard on April the 5th, together, having met just the day before. The two were roughly the same height and build and had similar facial types and similar hair color. None of these were coincidences, investigators believe. That evening, the two would return to the property that Pamela was renting, Unit 404 of the Snug Harbor at Marina Village complex. Late in the evening, CCTV footage would capture Lois leaving the unit, standing outside the door emotionally overcome, possibly crying, and then going back downstairs only to return in a few moments with a bag. Hours later, she would emerge again, carrying a large white trash bag, heading downstairs, returning again with yet another bag, and repeating the process all over again. She would then leave the property and not come back. During that period of time, someone claiming to be Pamela called the front desk and asked if she could extend her stay at the Snug Harbor for a few more days. The person, claiming to be Pam, then paid using one of her credit cards. Strangely enough, a different one than she had used at the time of the original check-in. The days were booked, and no one checked in for a few days. What no one could know, that inside the master bathroom of the place, Pamela Hutchinson had been shot and left to lay in the bathroom floor, covered with a blanket, much like David Reiss had been in Minnesota. Medical examiners would discover the fatal shots had been made by the same type of .22 caliber pistol that had been used in killing David, and that the shots apparently had been fired through a bedroom pillow held close to the gun to muffle the sound of the shots. Pamela's purse was found on the counter in the kitchen. It had been rummaged through. Her cash, jewelry, credit, and debit cards had been removed. The hat she had been seen wearing earlier was missing as well. That morning, Lois would drive her Escalade to Bowditch Point at Fort Myers Beach, about a mile away, and abandon the vehicle. After walking back to Snug Harbor, she would steal Pamela's car and go to a local branch of Wells Fargo, wearing Pamela's hat and bearing her ID and debit card. She would withdraw $5,000 in cash from Pamela's bank account. Lois had now assumed the identity of Pamela Hutchinson. She would then travel to Ocala, Florida, about 240 miles north, to check in at a Hilton hotel. She ordered room service twice and rented a movie. All of the expenses were put on Pamela Hutchinson's credit cards. She signed as Pamela and provided her ID as well. The next day, April the 7th, Lois, posing as Pamela, would use her debit card to make 3 more withdrawals at ATMs in the area for $500 each. She would also pick up a new low-cost cell phone and register it under her alias of Stormy Liberty. It would be April the 9th before anyone would find Pamela's body in the bathroom, where the door had been sealed up with a rolled-up towel, just like the one in the Reiss's home in Minnesota. Police put out a BOLO notice for her, and the U.S. Marshals began posting pictures of Lois Reiss on digital billboards throughout the region, offering a $6,000 reward for information leading to her arrest. Lois's Escalade was found later that day. Lois, however, had already left the state and was headed west to Texas. In Louisiana, a license plate reader would make an ID on Pamela's car as it traveled west along I-10, but no connection was made at that time. There was also a report that Lois had won a $1,500 prize at a Louisiana-based casino and claimed it using her own ID. On April the 8th, Lois attempted to make a withdrawal from Pamela's bank account again at a gas station ATM, but the $200 request was declined. She paid for her gas and other items with cash and moved on. Later that day, Pamela's car was spotted driving through Refugio, Texas. Once in Texas, Lois headed to South Padre Island, a well-known vacation destination near the Mexican border. She would check into a Motel 6 there and hole up in room 227. There is evidence that she made friends with another woman again, but for some reason the murderous grandmother was unable to repeat the process that she had used in Florida. On April the 19th, a tip was called in to the South Padre Island Police Department from an employee of Dirty Al's restaurant that Lois had just walked in, looked at the menu board, and then strolled back out, looking as if she was waiting to meet someone. Police were dispatched to the restaurant immediately, but she could not be found. On a hunch, an officer decided to walk across the parking lot to check another nearby restaurant, the Sea Ranch. Lois was found to be sitting at the bar, chatting with folks around her. Officer Aguilar quickly called for backup. As soon as all of the exits were covered, officers entered the bar and made their arrest. Her crime spree was over. The good times had come to an end. She was taken in and booked, no longer as Stormy Liberty or Pamela Hutchinson, but just as Lois Reiss, a grandmother with a bad gambling habit and blood on her hands. She would be brought before a judge in Brownsville, Texas, who would hold her over for extradition. The judge informed her that she was wanted by both Minnesota and Florida authorities and would be released to whichever came to get her first. Warrants were also given to search her room at the Motel 6. Within, they found a trove of evidence, including a mix of hers and Pamela's jewelry, Pamela's hat that Lois had worn to the bank, and 2 pistols, including the .22 caliber pistol used to kill both David and Pamela, and a 9mm semi-automatic. Scissors and a roll of duct tape could be found as well in her personal belongings, perhaps to be used later in a replay of her earlier murder plot should she find another look-alike victim. Investigators would also find Pamela Hutchinson's credit cards among Lois's possessions, along with the key fob to her 2005 white Acura. The car was found near the Sea Ranch and was impounded by local police and sealed as evidence. Notes found within the room spelled out the route that she had taken from Fort Myers Beach to South Padre Island and included notes on how to get to the Sea Ranch and a time to be there. She had possibly already lined up another victim. Luckily, no one fell into that trap before she was arrested. Florida would be the first state to come for Lois, and she accompanied representatives of the Lee County Sheriff's Office, which oversees the area around Fort Myers Beach. Representatives from the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension were also on hand. Lois would be brought in for questioning. The woman, who had stayed ahead of all prying eyes and investigators for nearly a month, no longer seemed like some kind of criminal genius. She was just a tired, older woman who wanted her medications. She seemed to have no idea that she had been the focus of national attention at that time.
So basically, we're both here today to kind of talk to you or maybe ask you some questions about what brought you to South Padre Island. And if you'd like to talk to us, that's fine. If you don't want to talk to us, that's fine. If you want to answer certain questions but not certain questions, that's fine. But more or less, I got some questions for you, and Mark had some questions for you. And that's the gist of what we're here, and that's the gist of the conversation I want to have with you. Okay? Like I said, my first name's Jay. This is Mark. If you have any questions, you can refer to me as Jay. There's no big deal.
I guess the first question I have is I want to get a lawyer.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah. I understand you read your Miranda rights the other night, right? Yeah. Did you understand all those rights? When they read them to you, did you understand each and every one of them?
No.
Okay. Do you want me to read them to you again, just so you know them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you have any questions about the next step that's going to take place?
Of getting a lawyer.
Yeah. You're going to be, right now, the state of Florida has an active warrant for you. I'm actually from the Sheriff's Office in Florida, from the County Sheriff's Office, okay? Right. And the state of Florida does have active warrants for you for homicide, okay, for grand theft of a motor vehicle, for grand theft over $5,000, and for something called identity theft. So you're going to be going back to Florida to face those charges. After that case is done, more than likely you'll have some issues to deal with from back home, where that case is going to start, okay? So, like I said, nothing against me, nothing against you. You were nice to me, you're cordial with me, I appreciate that, you're cordial with us. So, it's going to be a long road ahead of everybody, okay?
We've used several lawyers in Minnesota before.
Mm-hmm.
That should be where I'm calling.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, that's fair enough, and that's something that you'll have to take up. Sometimes lawyers in Minnesota aren't able to practice law in Florida, so that's something that you'll have to discuss with your attorney. But if you can't, like I said,
I wonder if I should discuss it with my children.
Well, I know your children have been concerned about you. My detective and actually one of the representatives from Dodge County has been in touch with them, and I know your grandchildren have been really concerned about you too. So that's an opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to use the phone and talk to them fairly soon, I believe.
Okay, I just want their guidance on which attorneys I should use.
Yeah.
One question I have is, do my kids know I'm alive and I'm here?
Yes. I don't know if you know this or not, but your whole story has been national news. Okay. It broke last night. It broke last night that you were arrested in South Padre Island, that you're alive and well, and that you were found by the U.S. Marshals and the local police department here. So,
okay, so they know.
I don't personally know that they know, but I can tell you that every local news media outlet nationwide has picked up the story.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I just wanted to know that I'm.
And I believe one of the investigators outside with you guys has contact with your kids.
Yeah, I think
Bobby. Is Bobby one?
No, that's
Billy.
my brother.
Billy. Yeah.
I think they may have been in contact with Billy. So.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And once you get down there too, we can tell them some of the concerns that you maybe had about the bed and things like that, but they'd be better addressed or be better prepared to answer some of those questions.
I just didn't want to stay on the bench for 2 weeks.
Yeah. No.
Because I'm not going to get better.
No, they're gonna. This is just like a temporary holding facility until you get through the paperwork process of everything. And as you can imagine, with something this big, there's a lot of paperwork we have to do. So,
okay.
Just like the reason we couldn't get your medication right now is because we're executing a search warrant on the hotel and the vehicle, and we can't walk into your hotel room without a judge letting me know that I can.
Right.
So, and that's what's taking a little bit of time when it comes to getting the medication that you take every morning or whatnot. Okay.
All right.
Lois would be charged in Florida with first-degree murder with a firearm, as well as a number of other charges involving theft of identity, grand theft of an automobile, personal property, and money. She was looking at a death penalty. In Minnesota, she was facing charges of first- or second-degree murder for the killing of David Reiss. Originally, she pled not guilty in both cases and was extradited to Minnesota to stand trial there first for the murder of her husband. There, she would tell investigators that on the night of the argument after the basketball game, in a heated moment, her husband had grabbed the pistol and handed it to her, telling her to end her own life. She said that instead she turned the pistol on him in self-defense and fired 2 or 3 times, killing him. Prosecutors were not swayed by her statements and proceeded with the first-degree murder charge, along with a host of others including theft. She would end up pleading guilty to the murder charge and be given a life sentence. In Florida, she was brought before the court to stand for the charges as well. Now, looking down the barrel of a death penalty, Lois once again decided to enter a plea of guilty in exchange for a life sentence. Lois's run had ended, and she will spend the rest of her days behind bars with no chance of ever seeing freedom again. Her short-lived run as Stormy Liberty ended as just another bad gamble. Had it not been for surveillance cameras at the hotel, Lois Reiss may well have slipped away with the murders she had committed. Just like her, 16-year-old Rocky Price believed he was moving undetected when he attacked a random stranger. A woman out for her walk, her thoughts are on seeing her daughter later that evening. Here is the path where the two worlds would collide, and when they do, it will be catastrophic, and no one saw it coming. 47-year-old fitness lover Lindsay Burbeck from Accrington, Lancashire, England, loved to go for a walk or a run. She'd been doing it for years and loved staying healthy and active. So, on August the 12th, 2019, she headed out around 4 p.m. to get in a walk, but when she looked back, apparently she had startled him away when she broke into her run, and he had quickly fled in the other direction. Zoe was very lucky that day. She did not realize just how lucky she was until weeks later. The male hadn't left the area at all. He was hiding and watching for someone else to come along. and Lindsay had just walked into the coppice a few minutes later. At 4:30 p.m., Lindsay's phone quit working. No calls or messages would come in or go out. It had either been switched off or broken, but it hadn't been by Lindsay's hand.
She just had
By 6 p.m., Lindsay's daughter, Sarah, and her boyfriend were standing outside of Lindsay's door, knocking but not getting an answer. Lindsay's car was still in the driveway. Sarah had forgotten her spare key at home, so there was no way for them to get in. At around 6:30, a strange-acting young male walks out of the coppice onto Burnley Road. As a matter of fact, it was the same one Zoe Braithwaite had encountered earlier. His jacket was unzipped, chest bare, and the knees of his track pants were wet, as if he may have been doing something strenuous other than a walk or a run. He's captured on CCTV footage as he exited. It would again show that over the next hour and a half, the strange young man would make 2 trips past the camera that covered the area of the coppice. At 6:55 p.m., he was seen on camera carrying a knapsack. He headed towards the Accrington Cemetery 4 minutes away. Sarah Burbeck had sent her mother several texts with no responses. This was out of character for her mother. There was no way she would change plans without calling or texting, and Sarah was growing very worried as the minutes passed. At 11:45 p.m., she and her father returned to Lindsay's residence with a spare key. Sarah had called her father with her concern about Mom being gone and not responding to calls or texts. When they arrived at the home, they searched through the whole house, but no one was there. Everything appeared to be normal. Nothing was out of place. Nothing was disturbed. At 12:11 a.m., August the 13th, 2019, Tim, Lindsay's ex-husband, would call the police, telling them that his ex-wife was missing. An investigation was quickly begun. Tim had met Lindsay in her early 20s on a night out, and it was him and her from that point on. They got along fantastically and enjoyed spending time in each other's company. After years of dating, the two decided to get married.
So she was tall, dark-haired, stunning. When she would agree to meet me again, I thought, winner. We got married 3 years after we'd been together.
Then came along their wonderful children, Stephen and Sarah.
Stephen, born June 2000. In October 2002, Sarah was born.
One of the outstanding things about Lindsay was that she was a special needs teacher's assistant to children at the Iton Hill Primary School in Burnley. She worked hard at helping others because she enjoyed it. It meant something to her to be able to change someone's life for the better. Her job couldn't be any more rewarding to Lindsay. Professionally, the work was satisfying, but her private life was a bit different. Things had started to change in her and Tim's married life. After 20 years of marriage, they had started to drift apart. Eventually, talk of divorce would work its way into the marriage, and they would separate from each other. He and Lindsay got along well, and Tim was always there when they needed him for anything. They may have decided to live separate lives, but they would always be a family, and Tim would watch out for Lindsay whenever she needed him, just as he was doing on August the 13th, 2019, when Lindsay went missing. People came from all over to help in the search for Lindsay. They met in the coppice to organize searches. This would include help from dog handlers with canines used for tracking. The Lancashire Fire and Rescue Service also was involved, and volunteers with experience in search and rescue added their skills to the search for Lindsay. Many others from the community were willing to give of their time and stepped up to help. Even drones and helicopters were used to search the coppice and surrounding areas. Others worked on the social media angle, and other volunteers made flyers to hand out and place throughout the borough. The police even released the CCTV footage to television of Lindsay walking the route that she took onto the coppice on that fateful day that she went missing. Morgan Parkinson was out walking his dog at the Accrington Cemetery when suddenly the dog cut and ran towards a wooded area that was tucked away at the side. Parkinson shouted for the dog to return, but she ignored his commands. When he located the dog, she had her head in the cluster of bushes and was sniffing at something interesting to her. Parkinson moved closer and stepped on something squishy and jumped back. He grabbed the dog by the collar and pulled her with him. It was then that a putrid smell hit his nostrils. The smell of something rotten and decaying hung heavy in the air. It was a naked body that had been wrapped in clear plastic and placed in a shallow grave, with loose foliage covering it in an attempt to conceal it. August the 24th, 2019 at 7 p.m., Lesly Burbeck had been found. A missing persons investigation had now turned into a murder, and that investigation was officially launched. Local authorities secured the scene and collected evidence, and they sent the remains off for an immediate autopsy. Pathologist Dr. Naomi Carter told investigators there had been an attempt to cut off Lesly's right leg. This would have been post-mortem after death, possibly in an attempt to dismember the body. It had been done with a saw. Dr. Carter found evidence of saw teeth marks in the deep laceration that had been cut to the bone and the kneecap. Had the killer been trying to cut up the body for better disposal, but failed? Lesly had been deceased for quite some time, so it was hard for Dr. Carter to determine the exact injuries as the body was so badly degraded. A body left out in the elements for 12 days would naturally be bloated from natural gases as the organs decomposed, and the color of the skin would go from green to a reddish color due to the blood decomposing as well. Dr. Carter could not rule out any sexual activity due to the decomposition, but Lesly's fingernails were still intact and could possibly have DNA evidence left by the killer. A thorough investigation did reveal significant force had been used to fracture Lesly's neck, especially to get the crushing damage that was done to the throat area and larynx itself. When the neck is fractured, it can come from severe compression. This can either be through stamping on the neck, severe kicking, or kneeling hard on the victim's neck by the assailant. If there is enough force from stomping, then the neck can break at the C1 juncture, known as a Jefferson's fracture, or at C2, the hangman's break, and the spinal cord can sever. This is called a ligamentous separation of the spinal column from the skull base, and life will cease within a few seconds. Investigators found a yellow-handled saw and a pair of green-colored gloves where Lesly was located. The items tested positive for blood. The outside of the gloves had Lesly's DNA on them, but the insides of the gloves contained DNA from an unknown individual that had never been entered into the system. A pair of Skechers athletic shoes, the kind that Lesly was wearing, were found in a blue plastic bag. Oddly, the soles of the shoes had been cut off and then thrown into the dumpster at the cemetery. The rolling blue trash bin was found, thoroughly analyzed and examined. It was swabbed for trace evidence and positively confirmed that DNA found inside was from Lesly. Hair had also been found inside, which belonged to Lesly. As with any murder, the family is always looked at and questioned first. They are the closest to the victims and could have reason to want the victim removed from their life. Lesly's ex-husband was the first to be looked at. Tim Burbeck was thoroughly checked out by the police. He had an alibi and was seen by others and eventually cleared from the investigation.
There was nothing whatsoever to show that Tim Burbeck could have been involved in Lesly's disappearance, and actually we can show he was elsewhere throughout the time when Lesly went missing.
Now the police needed to move on and look at all of the evidence they had collected. It could lead them to the real killer of Lesly Burbeck. As police continued their investigation, one of the officers that had reviewed the CCTV footage found that cameras had captured something that was quite shocking. First, Lindsay is picked up on the camera as she is starting her afternoon walk. Then there is the video of a young male pulling a blue rolling trash bin behind him. He was headed to the coppice. All this was occurring in broad daylight, but going unnoticed by people walking by. Then the wheeled bin is brought to the cemetery by the young man. Sometime after that, the young man is captured on video leaving the cemetery and heading away from the area. He was empty-handed. 16-year-old Rocky Marciano Price. His parents had named him after a well-known boxer. He lived with his dad and mom and 5 siblings in the Winnie Hill area of Accrington, a place they had called home for almost 3 decades. Rocky helped out on his family farm, especially taking care of the chickens, which he loved to do. Other things he also enjoyed were watching films and playing computer games, things that normal kids would like and be a part of. But Rocky wasn't considered normal to those in the outside world. Low average IQ of just 65, a diagnosis of autism and ADHD had changed all that. Rocky would become a student at one of the alternative schools for individuals with special educational needs. His teachers described him as quiet and almost nonverbal most of the time. They had never seen any aggression in the boy, nor had they witnessed him becoming angry either. He had been evaluated by a psychologist in 2015. The boy had difficulty identifying emotions in others and expressing emotions of his own. Rocky had never had any run-ins with the law or any reprimands from officials. He just never got into trouble. He was quiet and reserved and kept to himself. Yet, as stated earlier, on the 12th of August 2019 at around 6:30 p.m., Rocky is captured on CCTV footage exiting the coppice on Burnley Road with his jacket unzipped, chest bare, and the knees of his track pants were wet. He didn't appear agitated. He looked like he had just been doing something other than walking. He made 2 trips to the coppice at 6:55 p.m. Rocky was not panicked or flustered. He just sedately walked away from the coppice after allegedly murdering Lindsay Burback. He calmly planned how to transport her body from the coppice to the cemetery to dispose of it, and he wasn't in a rush to do it. Rocky did not know Lindsay, even though he lived just 3 minutes from Lindsay's residence. They had never met before or run into each other as far as anyone knew. The attack was unprovoked, yet something had to have set him off to do the damage he had done to Lindsay's body. So, what would cause a young male to commit such a heinous crime? Was it curiosity in the most brutal way? Did something set him off? Did he just snap? Yet he had been described as unemotional by those who had contact with him in the outside world. Were they wrong? Did something deep inside him break loose and surface in the most horrific way? Rocky's parents escorted their son to the local police station. This was after seeing him on the CCTV footage that was shown on television. It had been used by the police, appealing to the public for any information they had on the missing woman, named Lindsay Burback. Rocky's parents were unsure as to how he was involved, but would be utterly shocked when they found out the reason. Shortly thereafter, Rocky was arrested on suspicion of the murder of Lindsay Burback. His parents were adamant that their son had not done anything wrong. Rocky was questioned over the course of days and would continually deny the responsibility of Lindsay's death. He eventually told police that a stranger had offered him a large amount of money to dispose of the body. He stuck to his story that he had not killed Lindsay. He had just moved her body.
For 6 months, I had a sergeant murder.
Rocky said he had never met the man before that day, and the man had not been back in contact with him since then. Rocky said the man told him the money would be left for him in the coppice where the body had first been. But he did not find any money after he was finished with the job he was allegedly hired to do. Was he telling the truth or just spinning a tale?
So
Rocky stuck to his story of not guilty of murder when he first stood trial in January of 2020. But with the evidence they had, the investigation they had done, it would only take the jury 3 hours to come to a verdict: guilty of murder. But just as the trial was almost over, things came to a standstill. This happened when an investigation of some random cell phone footage popped up. It stood out because it was about a man that claimed that he himself had been involved in Lindsay Burbeck's murder. So, Rocky's attorneys argued that the young man could not get a fair trial due to this new information, and that the footage needed to be investigated first by them before a verdict could be put into play. After a lengthy investigation, it was eventually determined by several investigators that the footage was false and the man had lied. The cell phone footage had nothing to do with the present Rocky Price case. A new jury was chosen, and the second trial proceeded. It went on for 8 days, with the jury making its decision on the verdict in just 4 hours this time. The outcome was guilty, just as it had been in the first trial. In my judgment, the defendant's mental disorder cannot in any way excuse or explain his actions. I have no doubt that he knew what he was doing when he killed Lindsay Burbeck, and that he knew that killing her was terribly wrong, according to Justice Amanda Yip, sentenced Rocky to life for murder in the Lindsay Burbeck case. He would have to serve a minimum of 16 years to life. After the initial 16 years, Rocky could be released if the parole board decides that he isn't a danger to the public any longer. If he is released, he will be on license or probation for the rest of his life. It is the equivalent of parole in the U.S. While some may not understand how license works in the UK, it has been said that it's worse than being in prison. Your life isn't yours anymore. You can live in the community instead of in a prison, but you'll never be truly free. Detective Inspector Tim McDermott of the Lancashire Police was in charge of the case. He said Miss Burbeck lost her life needlessly, adding, "We may never know why, because not only did Price deny killing her, he also claimed he moved the body for a man he didn't know. This was a lie which, thankfully, the jury saw straight through." Rocky's family were adamant that he did not do it, that he had been found guilty on circumstantial evidence, and just because he had autism did not mean he was a murderer. They insisted they had the wrong person. His mother's words echoed in the courtroom. "He's my son, and he's innocent."
Rocky's family haven't accepted that Rocky has killed him. They believe what he has said, and that somebody else did it.
Was he innocent, or was it just a heartbreaking plea from a mother begging for the life of her son? As far as autism, what could have brought about such a change in Rocky? Teachers never had a problem with him, he never had outbursts, and they had never witnessed any aggression from him. Yet his own mother was concerned about how he would cope with the world as he grew up. Had there been a rage in him that would silently and quietly brew? One study found that 15 to 18% of adults who have autism and intellectual disabilities showed aggression. This is not to say that all individuals with autism are aggressive or that they would go to the levels Rocky has been found guilty of. Rocky Price did something very wrong, and there is no turning back on that. One family lost a loved one to murder. Rocky's family lost a son. It was because of a horrific choice he made and the innocent life he took.
I don't think it'll be possible to rebuild after this, because like most mums in most families, they are a big person to have in your life. So it's hard not to have it there.
No sentence will ever bring Lindsay back, it won't fill the void in the lives of her family. The devastation of losing their loved one will never be eased. They may have their wonderful memories of her, but no one can put their arms around a memory and hold it. Death is final, and Lindsay's senseless death should never have happened. So, what are your thoughts in this case? Is Rocky guilty? Or did he take the fall for some mystery person that has never been found? No one would have thought that a helpful stranger could turn out to be your worst nightmare. Lesly Palacios certainly didn't think so. What started as a kind gesture was about to spiral into something far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. It had been a sweltering hot day on Friday, August the 28th of 2020. It was nearly midnight when 22-year-old Lesly Palacios and 25-year-old Eric Rangel Ibarra pulled into the parking lot of the Longhorn Casino. Located in Whitney, an area once called East Las Vegas, the Longhorn Casino was built in 1989 and caters to visitors and locals alike seeking fun and gambling in a more low-key atmosphere. The two move inside and head to the Chuckwagon restaurant, passing by the slot machines and other gambling opportunities. She's a nursing student just months away from graduation, and he's a young man very interested in the date and what it might bring. The two settle in for a nice dinner and each have a number of alcoholic drinks with their meal. Really, it's nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, neither of them seem inebriated after their meal, walking back out, once again avoiding the slot machines as the locals often do. Lesly is carrying leftovers home in a bag, and Eric seems to be familiar and a trusted companion. She, because of the pandemic regulations, is wearing her mask. Eric has apparently forgotten to put his back on, making it easy to recognize his face. The two walk out into the parking lot. Their dinner has taken about an hour and a half. It is now in the early hours of Saturday morning. The two have an animated but apparently friendly conversation as they return to Eric's truck. She walks around to the passenger side of the truck and Eric gets in the driver's side. For a lot of folks, the date would end there. But in a town that runs around the clock, the night is still young, and, of course, the couple is too. They head off down the road to their next stop, Putter's Bar and Grill on East Charleston Boulevard in Las Vegas. The couple arrive around 2:15 a.m., about 20 minutes after leaving the Longhorn parking lot. The two have more drinks and leave some point later. No one working at the bar that evening could be sure exactly what time the couple left. Once again, while most folks may have called it an evening, the young couple kept their night on the town going. Their next stop would be one of the locations of the Bourbon Street Sports Bar. There, the two would be seen spending more time together, drinking beers and taking shots of tequila. Finally, after spending hours out and drinking, the two did finally call it a night and head back to Eric's home. The two get home just before sunrise as they're seen pulling into the street in front of the place Eric lived around 5:30 a.m. Lesly is showing the effects of heavy drinking, and now Eric has to help her from the car. She has a lot of trouble walking, and Eric helps her into the house. The two still seem to be getting along. Inside the house, Eric takes her up to his bedroom. The home is owned by Eric's father, Jose Rangel, and his mother. His younger sister lives there as well. Jose has plans to take his wife on an event at their church that morning, but he's not fully up and active at this point. No one really sees the couple come in. And then, something goes terribly wrong as the two end up in bed. Terribly, irrevocably, and fatally wrong. By Saturday afternoon, Lesly's family has become worried because she never came home from her date. Her mother, Lesly Palacios, and her sister, Lesly Palacios, contacted the Las Vegas Metro Police Department and told them that Lesly had not come home from her date the night before. They said they had been trying all morning to call her and to text her, but there had been no responses. The last communication her sister received from Lesly had been a text from her phone number that simply said, "I need to tell you some shit." Lesly's reply of what happened was never answered. Then, Metro Police Department did something that police departments and law enforcement agencies across the country are quickly phasing out. They told them they needed to wait 24 hours before declaring her missing. In the past, the 24-hour waiting period was a rule of thumb or a guideline widely followed in the days before people carried cell phones or even had access to landline phones in every home. The one-day wait rule would give people a chance to wander back home after either finding roadside assistance, getting over an argument, or whatever that had taken them away from their home in the first place. Over time, the law enforcement community realized that the policy wasted vital hours in the search for actual missing persons, oftentimes with tragic results. As cell phone use grew and ease of contact and communications grew with it, it was the final straw for the poorly conceived policy, and almost all departments now have a policy of investigation at the first report of a missing person. The idea that a person's family and friends would be the best to judge whether the person was actually missing won out over the manpower and budgetary concerns of the old policy. And yet, in this case, the Palacios family were asked to wait, and so they did, but not without trying to get in touch with Jose Rangel by phone to check and see if he knew what the couple had gotten into. He never answered. The family then tried to call Eric's sister, but again, no answer. They even went down to Rangel's home, but no one came to the door to answer it. They returned to the home an hour later, they said, and saw Eric's mom and sister loading some furniture into the back of a truck, but were unable to talk to them. The following day, with Lesly still missing and not replying to any communication attempts, they again contacted the police, this time opening a missing persons case. They informed investigators on what they knew about who she had gone out with and what little they knew of their plans. Somewhere in the department, at another desk on August the 31st, members of the Metro Police Department were taking another missing persons report, this time for two men, a father and son, Jose Rangel and his son Eric Rangel Ibarra. It took until September the 1st for the officers with the Missing Persons Department to match the two cases, especially with the Palacios family naming Eric as Lesly's date. A BOLO, or Be on the Lookout report, went out. Officers headed to the homes of the Palacios family and the Rangels, homes that were only a few blocks apart. The families had known each other for almost 15 years. Canvassing the area around the Rangel home on Tipper Avenue, officers were able to identify a security camera that would have looked down on the family's property. They were quickly able to obtain access to the videos taken by that camera and rewound the video until they had unmistakable proof that something terrible had happened. What had been two missing persons cases quickly became one case for the Metro Police Department's Homicide Division.
Prosecutors say video from the morning of August 29th shows 25-year-old Eric Rangel Ibarra helping 22-year-old Lesly Palacios, seen here alive, get out of his truck and into the house. An hour later, in video we've blurred due to its graphic nature, the same camera catches Rangel Ibarra and another man, who prosecutors believe is his father, 46-year-old Jose Rangel, dragging a lifeless body from the home and into that same truck. Minutes after, the truck drives off, leaving Rangel hosing off the walkway.
And now, both Jose and Eric are missing. Their family left behind have no idea where they are, but officers now know that the Rangel home is a crime scene. Warrants were obtained. Officers and forensic team members go through the home to find what would be described later as an attempt to clean up the place, perhaps unwittingly attempting to remove the evidence of a murder. As alert bulletins went out immediately with descriptions of the two men and of Rangel's pickup truck, including the license plate number, investigators went room to room in the small two-story home documenting the evidence still there. Las Vegas Metro Police Detective Mitchell Dorsch would later tell a grand jury that there were numerous pieces of evidence found at the scene of the Rangel's home. On the living room couch, a pair of blue latex gloves were found. Another set and numerous cleaning supplies were also found in the adjacent dining room area. Inside a mop bucket in the kitchen was a stained cleaning cloth, and the mop head showed signs of a dark substance as well. Upstairs, the scene of Eric's bedroom looked like it had been torn apart bit by bit and items had been moved around. Suspiciously, the fitted sheet had been removed from the mattress and was nowhere to be found. There were a couple of dark stains on the mattress as well that caught the attention of investigators. Inside the room, they also found a preferred customer card which would prove to be registered to Eric. Nearby, a shirt on a hanger, one of Eric's. It also had blood drops on it. Eric's wallet was found in the room. No money, but all of Eric's IDs were still there. Investigators also checked in the bathroom and found 2 blood spatters on the floor and took samples of them. The source of the spatters is still undetermined. As investigators combed through the Rangel home, arrest warrants were sworn out on Eric and Jose. Local media outlets flashed up the announcements alerting the public to be on the lookout for the two men, showing photos of both and including images of how they would look in surgical masks that nearly everyone was wearing at the time during that phase of the pandemic. The warnings came out too late to catch Eric and Jose, though. The notices did catch the attention of a friend of Eric's, though, and he had some very important information for local investigators. The man explained that he had known Eric for about 5 or 6 years, and the last time he had seen him in person was weeks before. Eric had come into a restaurant where the man was eating, and Eric was obviously very intoxicated. He sat down and asked the man if they were friends, and would he do him a favor in the future if Eric asked him to. The man said it was an awkward request and that he had humored Eric, obviously because he was drunk. Eric left and the man didn't think about it again until the morning of Saturday the 29th. The man said he got a call from a telephone number he did not recognize. When he answered it, it was Eric, and Eric immediately reminded him that he promised he would do him a favor. He was calling in that favor. Eric said that he needed to bring him some gasoline, and he couldn't find any himself because he didn't want to be seen anywhere on camera. The man asked him why, and Eric told him, according to his testimony before a grand jury, that Eric claimed he was in Utah, some 125 miles north of Las Vegas. The request was crazy and it didn't make sense. Why did he need someone to bring him gas from so far away, and why was he using a different phone than his usual one? Eric, who was obviously stressed out, told him he was on a burner phone. And then he said the words that would turn the missing person cases and the strange occurrences into the worst possible situation. "Because I killed a bitch," Eric told him. He then repeated it when his friend said that he didn't believe him. "I'm for real. I killed a bitch. I'm serious. She's dead in the back seat of my truck right now." The man wanted nothing to do with the situation, and he told Eric that he had to go pick up his daughter that morning and couldn't help. He then said he told Eric that he'd screwed up by telling him what he had told him. Eric immediately hung up the call. The man went to the police when he saw the reports on the local news. Eric, meanwhile, headed back to Las Vegas, apparently. He met back up with his dad, and the two took off for parts unknown. They told no one where they were headed, told no one what had happened, and seemed to leave no trail behind them. No debit card transactions, no cell phone pings for their phones, no witnesses calling in to say they had been spotted. They vanished like a pair of ghosts, leaving Jose's wife and daughters behind without any explanation. It would be September the 9th before Lesly's body would be found. Members of the Moapa Tribal Police, Red Rock Search and Rescue, and investigators from the Las Vegas Metro Police Department discovered Lesly's remains in the Moapa Valley near the Valley of Fire State Park, roughly 60 miles from Las Vegas. The location was a few miles east of Interstate 15 on the Valley of Fire Highway, about 2,500 feet down a dirt road. Her remains were hidden behind a bush located in a wash. Investigators would later tell a grand jury that the body had suffered terribly from the heat, turning black over the intervening days. In addition, it had suffered considerable damage from insects. Identification was initially made by matching the clothes that Lesly was seen wearing in the date-night videos, a striped top and blue jeans, to what was found on or near the corpse. Lesly's body was found without pants, and her underwear had not been put on correctly. According to the detective who was part of the recovery team and who had attended the autopsy, her thong-style underwear had been put back on her, as if the thong portion had been the waistband on the underwear. Her pants were found nearby in another bush. The body was taken to the state laboratory for testing and an autopsy to confirm the cause of death. Due to the ravages of the desert and the high temperatures, coroners were unable to determine the exact cause of death. The day after her body was found, Lesly's family, friends, and members of the community gathered for a memorial service for the young woman. It was a heartbreaking end to any hopes that she may have been found alive. As for Eric and Jose, they were gone, effectively disappearing. There were no reports about them being seen anywhere. And then, on January 19th of 2021, just over 3 months later, Jose Rangel turned himself in at the U.S.-Mexico border crossing. Officials from the San Isidro Border Patrol Station near San Diego, California, arrested him immediately and contacted the authorities in Las Vegas. Jose would waive his Miranda rights and would waive any extradition fight. He wanted to come home to his family. All he could say about Eric was the two had split up in Mexico and he hadn't heard from him in months. Investigators said that Jose was cooperative from the very beginning of their interviews, but originally gave a story that was watered down to lessen his involvement in the case. Once confronted by the security camera videos, he recanted his original story and opened up more to the officers. Jose said that he had been up early that morning and had been working in the home's garage. He had plans to take his wife to a church event in a couple of hours and was taking care of some things when he heard Eric and Lesly enter the house and stumble up the stairs. He said that a half an hour later, Eric came down the stairs shirtless, dragging Lesly's body behind him on a bedsheet. Jose said Eric told him that she had overdosed and died. Eric then completely lost his senses and started telling his father that they had to do something with the body. Jose said he immediately helped Eric get the body out of the house so that his wife and daughters would not come downstairs and be involved. He would continue by saying that when he looked at Lesly, he could see no obvious injuries. There was no blood or vomit on her, and she was only partially dressed with no pants and her panties pulled up awkwardly around the waist. He helped Eric put her into the car and immediately grabbed the water hose and started spraying off the gravel outside as his son drove away with the body. He told investigators that he had not consciously been attempting to destroy evidence then, but was just stunned and trying to do something. He said he thought Eric was heading to Utah with the intention of destroying the body. Distraught, Jose went to his other daughter's nearby home to speak with her. Shortly after he arrived, though, he said Eric turned up at that house as well. Jose had not expected to see Eric back that day, and Eric began acting crazy, shouting that he was going to kill himself or Jose, and that some people might be coming to kill the family. He said he chose to flee with his son, and the two went back home, gathered all the cash they could, and headed to California, and then crossed the border into Mexico by that evening. During the drive, Eric refused to talk about what had happened, except that Lesly had overdosed on narcotics and he had way too much to drink that night. In the end, Jose would strike a plea deal and pled guilty to destroying evidence and an accessory to commit murder, both misdemeanor charges. He spent 205 days in the Clark County Detention Center before coming to trial. He would be sentenced to a total of 2 years in jail for what he had done. The 205 days already served would be counted against that sentence as time served. The charges and light sentencing he received would be decried throughout the community and even within the district attorney's office. Chief Deputy District Attorney John Giordani would tell members of the press that the Nevada legislature needs to do something about this because dumping a young girl's body and treating her like a piece of trash should not be treated as a misdemeanor. And assisting a murderer after he commits such an egregious crime should not be treated as a misdemeanor. Lesly's family would also speak to the press about Jose's sentencing.
Si alguien sabe de estos criminales, por favor que se entreguen. Que se entreguen a la justicia, porque los van a encontrar a donde se vayan, que se entreguen. ¿Por qué la mataron a mi hija? Ella era una niña muy buena, estaba estudiando, ya se iba a graduar. ¿Por qué le hicieron esto? ¿Por qué la familia Guacope? ¿De que me la hayan matado? ¿Por qué? Yo no voy a descansar hasta no hacer justicia, que todos ellos paguen todo.
Porque ella fue como mi mejor amiga. Ella no se merecía esto que le hicieron. Ella era muy buena niña y una mejor amiga. Yo más quiero justicia y que pague por lo que le hicieron, porque ella no se merece esto. Y que lo atrapan a toda su familia, al papá, a todos, porque ella no se merecía esto. Ella era muy buena persona.
Jose would only serve an additional 8 months in jail before being released. During his time in jail, he had taken a number of courses mandated by the state that allows offenders to reduce their jail times. His release stirred up bad feelings within the community. He was now a free man. His son, Eric, was still out there, walking free and unpunished for what had happened on that fateful night and the next morning. He has been the subject of 2 nationally broadcast television specials, but no solid evidence has turned up. Reports that he has been seen both in Chihuahua State and Durango State in Mexico, but so far he has managed to avoid the authorities there. Lesly's family continued to make pleas to the community for any information that would put this case to rest and bring Eric to stand before a judge.
We always think about her all the time. Like, there's not a day, that goes by that we don't. Everything reminds us to bring yourself in, because there's no way of hiding out anymore. You can't hide forever and just, pay for what you did, because we're not gonna stop until we get justice.
He is still a very wanted man, and if you have any information as to his whereabouts, please contact the Nevada State Police by calling 755-684-2644. We may never know the real story of what happened to Lesly Palacios when she entered the home of the Rangel family. Was it an overdose that took her life, or did Eric somehow kill her as he told his friend? We can only hope that one day justice will catch up to him. In the darkest moments, even your own flesh and blood can betray you. Christopher Moffat rested thinking his brother would go down for his crime. Little did he know, a simple doorbell camera would end up exposing his darkest secret. Brothers and sisters can form a lifelong bond that is strong enough to weather all kinds of tragedies and triumphs. But when those family ties turn sour, they can become fiercely toxic. This is a tale of two brothers whose lifelong rivalry escalated to a conflict that resulted in the murder of a Colorado woman who got caught in the crossfire. Christopher Moffat and Veronica Serenana were in a relationship for 4 turbulent years. The good times were punctuated by Chris's violent outbursts. Despite his brutality against Veronica, Chris viewed their coupling as a beautiful love story. In reality, it was far from a storybook romance. In January of 2019, 5 months before Veronica was murdered, police arrested Chris for assaulting her. She told investigators he had been physically abusive to her more than 100 times over the course of their relationship. The most common method he used for hurting her was to force her down on her back and cover her mouth and nose with his hands so she couldn't breathe. The first time he strangled her, she lost consciousness. Chris was arrested in January for the incident. That charge, however, was dismissed in April. The following day, he assaulted Veronica again. He pled guilty to felony assault and was sentenced to 3 years probation. Veronica was granted a protection order. Soon, Chris was back in jail, this time for a drug charge. When he got out on June the 12th, he reached out to his old flame, Veronica, again, undeterred by her protection order. He had nowhere to go, so Veronica rented a series of hotel rooms for Chris in the communities outside of Denver, including Thornton and Brighton. Veronica was kind and generous to Chris in his time of need, but she would pay a deadly price for that compassion. Hotel security video from the afternoon of June the 17th shows one of the last times Veronica was seen alive. She is paying for the room while Chris walks by wearing a white collared shirt and a gray t-shirt layered over it. The t-shirt had the words "Serial Tillers" printed on the back. On the afternoon of June the 18th, Veronica visited Chris at his hotel. They picked up Chinese food and a 6-pack of beer for an hour-long picnic at scenic Lake Dillon. But there was a dark cloud hanging over them that day. Chris started to suspect that Veronica and his brother had been hooking up while he was in jail. He was hurt and angry. Chris wanted Veronica all to himself. He tried to convince her to skip town with him, to run away and start fresh. He was still on probation, living under the terms and conditions required, but he told her that he was willing to go on the lam to be with her. Veronica refused his offer. Chris lost control of his temper again. Only this time he couldn't or wouldn't stop himself before it was too late. Veronica would never take another breath. The medical examiner later determined that she died from manual strangulation. Veronica was just 38 years old. Her 2 sons from a previous relationship were left to grieve their mother's untimely passing. Chris knew that he was in deep trouble, worse than he had ever faced before. He started to form a harebrained plan, a desperate attempt to escape the consequences of what he had done. He decided to set up his brother, Frank Moffat, who went by Kelly, to be the unwitting scapegoat. He would try to convince investigators that Kelly had killed Veronica in a jealous rage. Chris later told police that Kelly had bullied him since he was a child, beating him up and picking on him. What he didn't admit to police was that this frame-up was his chance to get even, both to settle old grievances and for the recent betrayal with Veronica. The story Chris fabricated for detectives is that he dropped Veronica off at his brother's house around midnight on June the 18th, and that he reluctantly but peacefully accepted her decision to be with Kelly. That evening, text messages were sent from Veronica's cell to Kelly's. In an affidavit connected to the case, investigators implied Chris may have sent those texts. Chris was spotted on a security camera loitering around Kelly's house around 1:30 in the morning on June the 19th, but Veronica was nowhere to be seen. Kelly lived in Arvada, a suburb about 12 miles northwest of Denver. Later that morning, Chris returned to his brother's home, this time to plant evidence. In this video, Chris can be seen hanging Veronica's purse on the dog gate at Kelly's door. Kelly and his housemates found that purse the next morning but didn't know that Veronica was lying dead nearby. The next step in Chris's scheme to frame Kelly was placing a 911 call to report there had been suspicious activity and a disturbance the previous night at Kelly's house. About 20 minutes later, another 911 call came in from the Rising Church, located a few miles away. An employee there told the operator that a man matching Chris's description had walked into the church claiming his brother had killed his girlfriend and stashed the body in his car. Police descended on the scene of Kelly's home to search for the vehicle. They found the white Ford Escort parked near his home. Veronica's body was in the back seat, hidden under garbage bags and a rolled-up carpet destined for the dump. Kelly later told police he had loaded the broken-down beater with the trash because he knew it was going to be towed away. Based on the 911 calls, police moved in to arrest Frank Kelly Moffat. He didn't get a friendly knock on the door. Given the corpse in his car, his arrest was handled with caution. He was treated as a dangerous suspect. First, the officers fired flashbang grenades to attract attention, then loudly commanded him to exit the home.
Urbana PD! Make yourself known! Urbana PD, make yourself known!
All occupants of 6431, this is the Urbana Police Department!
Keep coming.
Yo, what's going on, man?
Keep coming. Who else is inside with you?
I don't know who else is in there.
Keep coming. Keep your hands up. Walk. Turn around. Face the other way. Back up towards me until I tell you to stop.
Right now?
Keep walking towards me.
Okay.
Until I tell you to stop.
Okay.
Keep walking. Keep walking. Drop to your knee. Keep walking. A little more. A little more. A little more. Keep walking.
What's going on?
Stop right there. Get on your knees. Cross your legs. Hands in the air. No. Keep your hands in the air.
As police arrested and questioned his brother for murder, Chris used his downtime to lay more groundwork for the Kelly setup. He drove around the area, stopping at libraries to email lovelorn messages to Veronica, begging her to run away with him to give the impression that he believed she was still alive. He didn't own a phone, but he called from places that he stopped at along the way, including a casino. He detailed some of his movements in a police interview.
And then the next morning I got up. I went a few places in town, over to a library, and then I headed out of town. And I stopped in Georgetown and used the library there and emailed Veronica. I tried calling her one other time. I stopped in Frisco. I think I emailed her from the library in Frisco. And maybe in Silverthorne. And she wouldn't answer my calls. She wouldn't answer my emails.
Detectives recovered this voicemail Chris left for Veronica.
Hey, babes. I know that we said that we weren't going to contact each other, but I just wanted to call and ask to see if maybe you'd change your mind one more time. That was a really nice date that we had. I understand you wanting to choose Kelly over me because he treats you better, but he just wants you to do drugs. The only reason that I ran from my problems here was to try to keep you away from drugs and him. He's a bad person. He's been bad his whole life. So, I don't know. I might try to email you. But it's never too late. Just don't go with him. Come with me. Don't choose the drugs and the stuff over. That's what I wanted. I wanted to get you sober. That's what everything. That's why, when we had that incident, I threw your drugs in the toilet because you act like a totally different bad person. And they're bad for you, and your face doesn't look as beautiful. When you quit doing them, you get better. Please, whatever you do, thanks for helping me out with the car, and as soon as I get the money to buy it, I'll send you the title. Or send me the title, and I'll send you the cash first, like we talked about. And I'll always love you, babes. I mean, babes forever. So, Kelly, I say.
Chris's explanation for why he was driving around in Veronica's car was that she felt bad about betraying him with his brother. To make amends, she turned her vehicle over to him so he could leave town. But that contradicts his own statements to police that the reason he was planning to skip probation was to support Veronica's well-being. If she wasn't willing to go, then why would he need her car to leave? Chris stated that he agreed to send Veronica $2,000 for her car when he had the money, and she would send the title in exchange. Police asked Chris to provide a timeline. He claimed he took Veronica to his brother's place in the car and dropped her off around midnight. He then drove around the mouth of the Black Rock Canyon and slept in the car. When detectives informed Chris that Veronica was the victim of a murder investigation, he faked surprised reactions.
Well, I want to talk to you, but I don't want to waive my rights.
Okay. Well, that's your choice. I can't. I'll be honest with you, we're here to talk to you because Veronica's dead.
I just want to chat about it now. What fucking mean, dude? Are you fucking kidding me, dude?
No, I wouldn't. We didn't drive all the way up here, just to joke with you, what I mean? We're investigating her death. And you can understand why we would want to talk to you because you're in her, obviously you were arrested tonight with her car, and you had made some statements to these guys here that you last saw her, last night, okay? So you're potentially one of the last people to see her alive, and so we're trying to figure out what happened, what's going on. I'm not accusing you of anything, but obviously we want to.
What you need to do is you need to look through the fucking information. You need to go through her fucking messages. You need to go through her phone. You need to go through her email. My fucking brother is a fucking piece of shit, dude. And she's been two-timing both of us. You look into what she's been doing. And she picked my brother. She gave me $300. We went and ate dinner at Summit County. And she was going to give me her car so I can run away. Because I was running for my probation. Me and her were supposed to run away together. And she chose to stay with my brother. Okay?
But there was a huge hole in Chris's plan to frame Kelly. The same security camera that caught Chris lurking around Kelly's place the night that Veronica died also exonerated Kelly. It proved he had not left the house all evening. And although Chris said he dropped Veronica off there, she did not appear on the recording. Kelly told the detectives he believed Chris was framing him because of his relationship with Veronica, and he admitted to sleeping with her once in April. When Kelly could prove he had an ironclad alibi captured on videotape, he was released that same day. Police quickly zeroed in on Christopher Moffat as the most likely suspect. Their hunch wasn't much of a leap considering the domestic violence charges involving Veronica that were on his record. Chris tried to present himself as a reliable truth teller, but the detectives weren't convinced.
My life might not be so savory or look so well, but I am an honest person, and I know that even talking to me, I know you gentlemen understand, I'm not full of shit. You know what I mean? I've chosen to be a good person. I'm extremely smart, and words don't stumble out of my mouth for a reason. I'm not like, you know what I mean? Because I don't have a place where I keep all my bullshit files, dude. You know what I mean? And life comes at me, unfortunately, in such a way that it's hard to make it bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
On June the 19th, the same day Veronica's body was found, Glenwood Springs police officers tracked down Chris. He was in Veronica's car in a Walmart parking lot. They arrested him for violating the restraining order and booked him into the Garfield County Jail. That's where 2 detectives from the Arvada Police Department visited Chris in the early morning on June the 20th to interrogate him about the final hours he spent with Veronica. The recent history with Chris's brother was a frequent topic of conversation.
I'm still confused. So how did you find out that her and Kelly had hooked up?
She was talking about my brother, and I knew that the way she was talking about him, that she was talking about him like they had hung out, and I asked her if she'd been fucking killed, and she told me she had been. And she told me she only did it once. But I happen to know since then that she had been doing it the whole time. She'd been telling me, look, wait till you read her messages.
So how do you know that? You keep telling me to look through the messages. So what is in the messages?
Her and Kelly hanging out all the time, as often as possible.
Okay. And how do you know that's in the phone? In the messages.
She told me that the night before, she just left, and she actually sent me an email telling me that she slept in a parking lot. But I don't know if you want to say I'm psychic or that I just know her, but I was like, bullshit. You went right to Kelly's, and then when she came back, I was like, I know you went to Kelly's last night, and she said she just denied that she did, and I said, I need you to run away with me. I need you to commit to me. Let's go get away from drugs. Let's go get away from everything.
Chris repeatedly denied killing Veronica. He even went so far as to label her a stalker who was obsessed with him.
And we had talked about not talking anymore because we're poison for each other. We can't stop. But if she had to choose one or the other, and she chose my brother. But you'll see. She goes in Summit County. We went and we ate dinner. She went to the ATM and got me money. She takes care of me, dude. Although she's with my brother and having sex with him, she's infatuated with me. Look through all her. She is a stalker. She's my stalker. She hacks all my emails. She calls my work. You know what I mean? She's obsessed with me. But she wanted my brother. And she wouldn't, she was saying, yeah, I want to run away with you, but I still want to stay with my brother, but she couldn't tell me she wanted to stay. And I said, I want you to be happy. I wanted to run. One of the biggest reasons that I ran for my probation was to keep her sober. She is beautiful when she's sober. I want my brother's done. I gave in. I was like, if that's what you want, let's just stay, but I need help. And you could tell she felt guilty. That's why she gave me the money and let me dig her car, because she felt guilty. But it was the drugs. I could tell that without drugs, my brother would have no contest with me. I could win it hands down. You know what I mean?
But that was all the same day then, right? Am I understanding you right? Okay. Do you remember what time she got up there because you said she wasn't staying there, right? So that room is for you. She bought it for you, but she wasn't staying there.
She came. I don't know exactly when it was, but she came in the afternoon.
Okay.
And she had rented the room for me. She was with me the night before until about 8 or 9, and then she took off to Denver. Like I said, I called her a lot. I knew. Guys, I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that I'm psychic, but I think that when you're really in love with somebody, and me and Veronica are in love, and I don't want to have this. I can't believe this. I can't believe this.
So.
Chris, who was 36 years old at the time he killed Veronica, told investigators that the bad blood with his brother went back a long time, way before Veronica came on the scene. It started in their childhood.
And he threatens me. He threatens me. Every time. I mean, it's either do what he says, or beat shit out of me. You know what I mean? Literally, and it's been that way since I was a kid. They used to torture me when I was a kid, beat me up, give me fake garb, fucking smother me, and I was just a little boy. You know what I mean? And then they'd talk me into being on their side again and forgiving them. And I'd lie to my parents and say I was on my bike when I got hurt. You know what I mean? And it was really my brother been beating shit out of me all day. And when you look through her messages, I guarantee my brother, I know my brother, dude. He's just user 101. He'll milk you fucking dry until you ain't got nothing left, and then still drown you after that if you let him, because he's done it to me. You know what I'm saying? He's done it to her.
4 months after Chris went to jail, he had a surprise video visit from his younger brother, Kenny. It was so unexpected that he hadn't even thought to check the visitor log. The intersection between these two brothers was a stark contrast for the animosity Chris felt towards his older brother, Kelly. He was clearly moved to hear from his younger brother, Kenny, and thrilled that his little brother made such an effort to contact him while in custody.
Let me get a headset. Hold on, I didn't expect you to be there. Give me a second.
I can't believe you're calling. Yeah, I can't believe you're calling. I can't believe you're calling me, dude. I can't believe you're calling me.
How you doing? It's loud in there, huh?
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too, bro.
You look good, man. You look good. I like that beard.
Yeah, you look good too, bro.
Looking in.
Hey, you have no idea what it means to me. You called me.
Well, dude, I didn't even know, what was going on. I got your back, dude. Forever. I'll never quit that.
Well, I'm here to tell you, man, life's tough, brother.
Don't ever give up on nothing. Yeah, I got for you, bud.
Yeah, do you know what's going on with me, bro? I mean, do you have any idea?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, sometime I need to write you some letters.
Yeah.
I need to yeah, I'm facing a lot of trouble.
I understand.
But yeah, I mean,
you still need to keep positive and do the best you can, man. You know what I'm saying?
I am, dude.
I'm not saying
you have no idea.
I know. I just know how it could be, and I know how I'd be, man. And I'd want your help. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hey, I appreciate it. Hey, you know, one thing I need you to do is I need you to be there.
Yeah, well, and I've reached out, you know, and I'll definitely be there, dude.
She needs you. If I'm not gonna be there, I mean, you might as well, you know.
Oh, for sure, man. You got it.
Please.
Yep.
I wouldn't even look to see that I had a visit, man, and one of the guys came over and was like, hey, you got a visit, and I was like, what the fuck?
Well, this is the second one, and I just had the phone sitting there because I already called the officer trying to get some help, seeing if I could get through to you, because they're basically saying that if you don't look for it, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, no, and I just, you know, I'd expected to probably never talk to anybody ever again. You know, I don't know.
No, don't think like that, brother, man. Don't think like that. I got your back, and I love you, dude. And you and I are brothers to the end, man, no matter what. And I got your back, and do whatever I can to help out, no matter what.
That's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
You know, no, I know, I love you, man. I love you, dude.
Fucking it.
Chris didn't discuss the details of his case with Kenny. He told him he couldn't talk about it because it wasn't resolved yet. Kenny said that was fine with him. One topic Chris didn't shy away from discussing was his young daughter from a previous relationship. He repeatedly begged Kenny to be a presence in her life so she wouldn't lose her connection to the Moffat side of the family. Kenny promised he would do everything he could to make sure that didn't happen.
And I basically go to bed every night thinking that I'm never going to you ever again.
Yeah, well, I'll try as best I can to help bridge that gap, man. If I can, you know what I'm saying?
But you got to be there for her. I mean, you might as well. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, she needs a male role model in her life that'll tell her that she's beautiful and she's smart, and that way she doesn't have underlying issues with men when she gets older. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, I can't believe I'm talking to you, bro. I thought I'd never talk to anybody ever again. I mean, you know what I mean? That's what, when I go to bed, that's what I think every night, dude.
Yeah, you don't ever want that feeling. I'll talk to you, man.
Yeah, you don't ever want that feeling. I mean, you don't even know how much this means to me, bro. This means the world, dude.
Well, it was cool to look at the phone and see your face, dude. I was about to hang up on the fucking thing because I'd already been waiting for it.
Well, I would have never looked at it.
This is the second time I've done this. This is the second time I've done this.
No, I never come over to this kiosk like I would have never have guessed, bro. It means the world to me.
Well, thank that dude, man. Because I appreciate that too.
No,
I don't know what he did.
I love you. I love you with all my heart and soul, Kenny.
I love you too, man. I love you too.
I'm so glad you're doing good, man. I can't even believe it.
No fucking way.
Chris and Kenny started having regular video calls from the jailhouse, and they give a glimpse into what daily life is like for inmates.
It's been kind of crazy. Last night, somebody tried to escape out of here.
Really?
Oh yeah, no, they tried to climb the cage and pry it open and get out of here.
They know where you're going.
No, yeah, they make it pretty much impossible, but you know,
the whole world like that nowadays, you wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, no, dude, I think dude was facing like a couple 100 years though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Pretty crazy.
Oh, you see there, we're all locked down. They make us stay in these little rooms here. They're like little caves.
Did they change that?
Each one of these. No, all this out here is like the day room, and then these little rooms right here are 12-man caves. Yeah,
okay,
they got 12 beds in there. Yeah, And you see the dudes hanging out. We're in lockdown right now, so we can't even come out in this room unless and they letting me out because I have a visit. Otherwise, we can't even be out here in this big room right now.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's called. Yeah, and they lock us down. We're locked down at night, and then we're locked down after breakfast and after lunch and after dinner.
Because of that, what happened over there?
Yeah, but what happened, them trying to get out of here, no, they locked us down all day, and you know, that happens. Sometimes they lock the whole facility down like that.
Yeah.
But,
pretty crazy.
And then I got my beard trimmed up a little bit, otherwise I was pretty shaggy, and I don't even realize it because the mirrors in here, you can't even barely see into them.
Looking at yourself.
Yeah. They're not glass, they're made out of metal, and you know, people have been washing them, and they made them to where you can't barely see into them.
It's all it is just a polished surface.
Exactly.
You got 10 minutes of buffing first.
Exactly. It's kind of like trying to shave into a kitchen sink. You know what I mean? You know, like looking into a kitchen sink.
You know, every now and again you can catch something.
Yeah, that's right. You know, I can tell I got an orange shirt on, but that's not it.
That's about it. Yeah. That's the whole fucking thing.
Oh, for real. But absolutely. And then tomorrow we get commissary. Thank you for that. Everybody's running around on shots of coffee and eating honey buns. Yeah, it's a little different around here on Saturdays.
Well, and is it different than where you were at before?
Yeah, you know, there we were kind of stuck in our cell most of the day, and so you were in there by yourself or with a cellie, and here it's kind of an open environment, and so yeah, there's lots of wheeling and dealing that goes on.
Okay. Is it better or is it worse?
It's better. It's better for time and better for my mind. You know, I'm not staring at the wall, but I'll talk to you in a couple days, brother. I love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Love you too, man.
All right.
Good to see you. Looking good, man.
The day before Thanksgiving, Chris's dad joined in on the video visit with Kenny. It was an emotional father and son moment.
Dude, I stay pretty happy in here, and you know, there's a little bit of negativity with, you know, some guys going through some tough stuff, but a lot of us guys are reading the Bible together, and you know, we got our own little cave of people. It's like about 10 people that we sleep real close to. You know, there's no cell door or anything to keep us in this big room, but we got our little caves, man, and we got a pretty good cave of guys, you know. You know, talk about God a lot and pray and try to keep things upbeat and happy, and so, you know, things go good, man.
Yeah, no, that's
absolutely
good. You gotta keep it as positive as you can. Yep, you know that.
Oh yeah, for sure. And no matter what, Dad, you know, things get tough, but don't you worry. You know, we need to be happy and you know, what time we've got and the communication that we can get into and letters and talking. You know, make sure to stay happy, Dad. You know, I love you with all my heart and soul, and I miss you all the time, and I think about you all the time, and that's really what's important. I got you.
It's a tough one. I know.
I know, Dad. Don't you worry. I wish I was there to see you, and you never know how things will work out, but you know, you're in my heart and on my mind almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that's what's important. I love you.
Love you too. All right. Yeah.
In the end, Chris's plan to frame his brother fell apart because investigators didn't believe his story. Security cameras contradicted his account, and the lab results confirmed what police already suspected. Chris's DNA was found on Veronica's hands and neck. Kelly's DNA was not present. The autopsy report stated that Veronica had suffered bruising and abrasions to her lips, eyes, throat, neck, and shoulders. The cause of death was manual strangulation. Christopher Moffat pled guilty in 2021. The plea deal dropped the original charges of first-degree murder and tampering with physical evidence. Jefferson County Judge Diego Hunt sentenced Chris to 40 years in prison for second-degree murder and 15 years for tampering with a deceased human body, plus 8 years on parole. If you found this case compelling, don't forget to like the video, comment down below your take on it, and please subscribe to the channel. We're on our way to 1 million, and we'd love to have you along. Also, hit the notification bell in order to stay up to date each time we reveal a new shocking case. Until next time, stay safe and keep your eyes peeled. You never know what's lurking in the shadows.